He returned from his trip after 8 months, and his children kicked him out without remorse. Walter Jenkins could barely process what was happening when he saw his clothes being thrown onto the lawn of the house he had lived in for 40 years. The 72-year-old man had just returned from Miami, where he spent 8 months caring for his sick sister, and now found his own children blocking his entry into their home in Chicago. That's when he realized something was terribly wrong. His children, Jennifer and Robert, stood at the front door with cold expressions, as if he were an unwanted stranger. Jennifer, the eldest daughter and a successful lawyer, held a brown envelope in her hands. "Dad, you can't come in anymore," Jennifer said, her voice sharp as a blade. "What do you mean I can't come in?" "This is my house," Walter replied, still holding his suitcase, completely bewildered. "Not anymore. The house is ours now," declared Robert, the youngest, avoiding direct eye contact with his father. Walter dropped his suitcase, his legs trembling. 40 years of history in that house, 40 years of memories, struggles, and triumphs. He had raised his children alone there after his wife left when they were still young. He had worked endless nights to provide a decent life for Jennifer and Robert. "Have you lost your minds?" Walter asked, his voice choked. Jennifer opened the envelope and pulled out some papers. "You signed these documents before your trip, Dad. The house is now in our name." Walter took the papers with shaking hands. They were official documents, notarized, with his signature. But he didn't remember signing them. He only recalled signing some papers Jennifer had said were to make things easier while you're away caring for Aunt Margaret. "But I didn't know it was this. You told me they were just papers to organize your affairs, And that's exactly what we did," Jennifer interrupted. During the 8 months he was in Miami, Walter had only called his children 3 times. They always seemed busy, in a hurry, saying everything was fine in Chicago. Now he understood why. "Dad, you need to understand. We were worried about your mental health," Robert said, finally looking at his father. "My mental health? I'm perfectly fine. In your last calls, you seemed confused. We talked and decided it would be best to take care of your affairs before something worse happened," Jennifer explained. Walter was stunned, confused. He had cared for his sister with complete clarity. Margaret had fully recovered from a heart condition thanks to his care. How could he be confused? "Where are my things, my furniture, my clothes?" "We sold what we didn't need. What's left is out there on the lawn," Robert said, pointing to some plastic bags beside the scattered clothes. Walter looked at the lawn. 40 years of life reduced to a few old clothes and 3 plastic bags. His books, his important documents, his photographs, everything was gone. "And my grandson? Where's Jason?" Jason was Robert's 18-year-old son, whom Walter had practically raised. When Robert separated from the boy's mother, Walter had taken on much of the responsibility for his grandson's upbringing. The two were very close. "Jason is at college. He understands our decision," Robert lied. But Walter saw a curtain move in the second-floor window. For a brief moment he caught sight of Jason's face, watching everything. The boy looked frightened, his eyes glistening with tears. When he realized his grandfather had seen him, Jason quickly stepped away from the window. "Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot since we're just starting out." Now continuing, the neighbor next door, Mrs. Wilson, a 65-year-old woman who had known the family for decades, came out of her house when she noticed the commotion. "What's going on here?" she asked, stepping closer to the gate. "This isn't any of your business, Mrs. Wilson," Jennifer said sharply. "How is it not my business? I've known Walter for 20 years. He's a good, honest man. What are you doing to him?" "Ma'am, if you don't step back, I'll sue you for invasion of privacy," Jennifer threatened, flashing her lawyer's badge. Mrs. Wilson retreated but didn't stop watching everything from her window. Walter realized he was alone in this situation. He had nowhere to go, no money in his pocket, except for a few bills left from his trip. "At least let me grab my important things, my documents, my money." "Your documents are safe with us. As for the money, well, we need to talk about that," Jennifer said, exchanging a knowing glance with Robert. "What do you mean?" Your joint account was emptied. We needed to pay for some urgent home renovations, Robert explained. What renovations? Jennifer opened the door, and Walter could see inside the house. It was completely different. What used to be his office, where he spent hours reading and organizing his finances, was now a gym with modern equipment. The living room had expensive new furniture. The kitchen had been completely remodeled. You spent all my money on renovations. It was necessary. The house was too old, Jennifer said. And my investments, my savings? We transferred those under our control too, for security, Robert replied. Walter did the math in his head. It was nearly $100,000 in savings, the result of a lifetime of frugality. Money he had set aside for emergencies for his old age, to leave something for his children when he was gone. You've taken everything from me. We didn't take. We protected. You were sending too much money to Aunt Margaret. That showed you weren't thinking clearly, Jennifer said. It was true, Walter had sent money to Margaret to cover her medical treatment. She had no resources, and he was the only brother who could help. But that wasn't a sign of mental confusion. It was family solidarity. Margaret needed my help. And what about us? Don't we matter? You always preferred her, always sent her money and never cared about us, Robert snapped. How can you say that? I've dedicated my whole life to you. Dad, you need to accept reality. You can't live alone anymore. We'll arrange a suitable place for you, Jennifer said as if she were doing him a favor. A nursing home, is that it? A specialized residence. It'll be better for everyone. Walter felt his world crumbling around him. In just minutes, he had lost everything. His home, his money, his dignity. The children he had raised with so much love and sacrifice were treating him like a burden. I'm not going anywhere. I'll fight for my rights. With what money, Dad? With what lawyer? Jennifer asked, a cruel smile on her lips. It was true. With no money, no home, no resources, how could he fight against an experienced lawyer like Jennifer? Walter's phone rang. It was Margaret, calling from Miami. Hey bro, did you get there okay? Walter stepped away to answer, his voice trembling. Margaret, I'm having some trouble here. What kind of trouble? Walter couldn't answer. How could he explain to his sister that he had just lost everything? How could he tell her that his own children had betrayed him? Bro, are you okay? You sound strange. I'll call you later, Margaret. I can't talk right now. Walter hung up the phone before Margaret could ask more questions. He didn't want to worry her after everything she'd been through. Jennifer glanced at the clock. Dad, we have commitments. You need to leave our property. Our property? Walter repeated silently, still unable to believe the words. We left some clothes and your personal things out on the lawn. That's all we could save, said Robert, avoiding his father's gaze. Walter began gathering his clothes scattered across the grass. Shirts he'd worn for years, pants Margaret had mended for him, shoes he'd bought for special occasions, all thrown on the ground like trash. Inside one of the bags, he found his yellowed work ID. 45 years as an accountant at a steel company. A retirement earned with honesty and dedication, and now he was on the street like a beggar. You'll regret this, Walter said, his voice quiet but firm. Threats won't solve anything, Dad, Jennifer replied. It's not a threat, it's a promise. I'll prove you're wrong about me. Jennifer and Robert went inside and closed the door. Walter stood alone on the lawn, surrounded by his few belongings. The sun was setting, and he had no idea where he'd sleep that night. Mrs. Wilson opened her window. Walter, she called softly. He looked up. Come here. Quick! Walter glanced at the house, making sure Jennifer and Robert weren't watching, then walked to his neighbor's home. Get inside, Mrs. Wilson said, opening the side door. Walter stepped into her simple but cozy kitchen. The smell of fresh coffee brought a small comfort to his broken heart. Sit down. I'll make you some coffee. Thank you, Betty. I don't know what to do anymore. Those kids of yours are ungrateful. I've seen everything you've done for them all these years. Betty poured the coffee and sat at the table. Walter, do you have anywhere to stay tonight? I have nothing. They took everything. You can stay here tonight, but my daughter gets back from her trip tomorrow, and she can't know. You know how she is. She doesn't like visitors. I understand. Thank you for your kindness. There's one more thing. I recorded the whole conversation from my bedroom window. Betty showed him her phone. It's not very clear, but you can hear them talking about the money and selling your things. Could this help? I don't know, but it's proof they admitted to it. Walter sipped his coffee in silence, thinking about what to do. He needed a lawyer but had no money. He needed a place to stay but knew no one except Betty. He needed to prove his mental stability. But how? Betty, do you know any lawyers who could help me? I know Dr. Thompson. He has an office in the neighborhood. He's young, but they say he's honest. Do you think he'd see me without money? It's worth a try. That night, Walter slept on Betty's couch, or tried to. He spent the whole night wondering how he'd ended up like this. Where had he gone wrong? How had he missed his children's intentions? He remembered when Jennifer was little and sick. He'd stay up all night by her bed, caring for her, taking her to the doctor, buying expensive medicine even when money was tight. He remembered Robert as a rebellious teen, getting into fights at school. Walter always defended him, talked to principals, paid for things his son broke, and Jason, his beloved grandson. How must the boy be feeling? Did he believe his grandfather was losing his mind too? The next morning, Betty woke Walter early. My daughter arrives at 10. You need to leave before then. Of course, thank you for everything. Wait, I got Dr. Thompson's address for you. Betty handed him a slip of paper with an address in downtown Miami. Good luck, Walter. I hope you can resolve this. Walter left Betty's house carrying his few belongings in 2 plastic bags. Walking through the streets of the neighborhood where he had lived for so many years, he felt like a stranger. The neighbors greeted him as usual, unaware of the drama he was going through. Dr. Thompson's office was on the 2nd floor of an old commercial building. Walter climbed the stairs slowly, his legs still shaky from the tension of the past few days. The secretary, a young woman with curly hair, greeted him warmly. Good morning. Do you have an appointment? No, but I really need to speak with the doctor. It's urgent. He's busy, but I can fit you in late this morning if it's quick. Thank you. Walter waited nearly 2 hours in an uncomfortable chair. When he was finally called in, he found a young man, about 35, with messy hair and glasses. Good morning, Mr. Walter Jenkins. How can I help you, Mr. Walter? Walter told the whole story, from his trip to care for Margaret to the moment he was kicked out of his home. Dr. Thompson listened carefully, taking notes. Mr. Walter, this is a delicate situation. Your children used documents you signed to transfer the property. Legally, that may hold up. But I didn't know what I was signing. That's what we need to prove. Do you remember exactly what your daughter said when she presented the papers? She said they were just to organize things while I was away. That could indicate fraud, but we need evidence. I have a recording from the neighbor. That helps, but it's not enough. We need to prove there was bad faith in obtaining your signature. Dr. Thompson explained the process would be long and expensive. Walter's heart sank at the mention of costs. Doctor, I don't have any money. They took everything. Mr. Walter, I'll be honest with you, this case hits close to home. I lost my own grandfather last year, and I know how painful these situations can be. I'll take your case pro bono, but on one condition. What is it? If we recover your assets, you pay me a percentage of what we get back. If we get nothing, you owe me nothing. Doctor, I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me yet. We have a lot of work ahead. Doctor, Thompson outlined the first steps. They needed medical reports proving Walter's mental competence, witnesses to confirm his soundness of mind, and evidence that he was misled when signing the documents. Do you have somewhere to stay in the meantime? No. Do you know any places that hire people your age? Walter thought for a moment. There's a commercial building nearby where I worked years ago. They might need a night janitor. Good idea. Night work will give you time during the day to handle the case. Walter left the office with a glimmer of hope in his heart. For the first time in 2 days, someone had believed him and offered help. The commercial building was a few blocks from Dr. Thompson's office. Walter knew the manager, Mr. Anderson, from his time working at a company there. Walter, what a surprise. What brings you here? Bill, I need a job. Do you have any openings for a janitor? A job? But aren't you retired? I am, but let's just say I've hit a rough patch. Bill noticed the sadness in his friend's face and didn't press further. We do. The night janitor quit last week. It doesn't pay much, but there's a small room in the back where you can stay. I'll take it. You can start tonight if you want. Walter spent the rest of the day organizing his few belongings in the small room at the back of the building. It was simple but clean. Just a bed, a small closet, and a tiny bathroom. After 2 days of uncertainty, having a roof over his head brought relief. At night, while making his rounds through the building, Walter thought about what Dr. Thompson had said. He needed medical reports. On Monday, he would go see Dr. Miller, his doctor for over 15 years. During the early hours, the building was silent. Walter took the opportunity to organize his thoughts. He made a list of all the people who could testify in his favor: Dr. Miller, Margaret, some old neighbors, co-workers. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. On Sunday morning, Walter decided to pass by his old house. He wanted to see if he could talk to Jason. He needed to know if his grandson was okay and to explain his side of the story. When he reached the street, he saw Jason coming out the front door. The young man was wearing the soccer team jersey Walter had given him for his birthday. When he saw his grandfather, Jason nervously looked around. "Grandpa," the boy said, approaching. "Jason, my grandson, how are you?" Grandpa, they said you were sick, that you couldn't take care of your things anymore. Do you believe that?" Jason looked at the ground. "I don't know what to believe. They showed me some calls from Miami where you seemed confused." "Confused how?" "Saying things that didn't make sense, forgetting names." Walter tried to remember the calls he had made home. It was true that sometimes he was exhausted after days of taking care of Margaret. Maybe he had spoken in a rushed way or had small lapses, normal for anyone under stress. "Jason, I might have been tired, but I was never mentally confused. I took care of your great-aunt Margaret with complete clarity. She made a full recovery." "Is it true you sent her a lot of money?" "I sent what was necessary for her treatment. She was my sister. She needed my help." Jason seemed torn between his parents' version and his grandfather's. "Grandpa, where are you staying now?" "I'm working as a janitor in a commercial building. I have a small room there." "Working? But you're retired." "I need to support myself somehow. Your parents took all my money." Jason glanced at the house and saw Jennifer at the window, watching their conversation. "Grandpa, I have to go. If they see me talking to you..." "Jason, listen carefully. I'm going to prove that I'm perfectly sound of mind, and when that happens, I want you to know I never doubted your love for me." The boy nodded and hurried back inside. Walter realized Jason was being watched and controlled by his parents. On Monday, Walter went to Dr. Miller's office during his lunch break. The nurse, who had known him for years, was surprised to see him. "Mr. Walter, how are you? It's been a while since we've seen you here." "I'm fine, Nancy. I need to speak with the doctor about something important. He's finishing up an appointment. You can wait." When Dr. Miller called him in, Walter noticed the surprise on the doctor's face. "Walter, how's Margaret doing?" "She's great, doctor, made a full recovery, but I need your help with something else." Walter explained the whole situation. Dr. Miller listened with growing attention and indignation. "Your children claimed you have mental problems?" "Yes. They said I seemed confused on the phone calls." "Walter, I've been your doctor for 15 years. You've always been one of my most lucid and organized patients. At your last checkup in January before your trip, you were perfectly fine. Could you write a report confirming my mental soundness? Of course, I'll order some additional tests, but I can already tell I won't find anything suggesting cognitive issues." "Doctor, there's one more thing. They said they never consulted you about my mental health." "That's true, no one reached out to me. If they were truly concerned, they would have called or brought you here for an evaluation." Dr. Miller scheduled some tests for the following week and promised to have the report ready in a few days. Walter left the office feeling more confident. During that week, he used his mornings to gather more evidence. He reached out to old co-workers who confirmed his clarity and competence. He spoke with other neighbors who testified to his good relationship with his children over the years. Dr. Thompson was impressed by Walter's dedication. "Mr. Walter, you're building a solid case. I have more good news." "What?" "I obtained a copy of the documents you signed. There are some irregularities that could help us." "What kind of irregularities?" "The documents don't clearly explain that they involve property transfer. The language is confusing, deliberately ambiguous. This strengthens our claim that there was fraud." "Does that mean we can win?" "It means we have a chance, but we need to be prepared for a long battle. Your daughter is an experienced lawyer and won't give up easily." That Friday, something unexpected happened. Walter was doing his nightly rounds when he heard someone knocking on the building's door. Through the glass, he recognized Jason's silhouette. Walter quickly opened the door. "Jason, what are you doing here?" "Grandpa, I need to talk to you. I found out something important." "Come in, quick." Jason stepped inside, nervously glancing at the street. "They don't know I'm here. I told them I was going to a friend's house to study." "What happened?" "Grandpa, I overheard a conversation between Dad and Aunt Jennifer. They were arguing about you." "What did they say?" "Aunt Jennifer was mad at Dad because he spent too much money renovating the house. She said now they'll have to sell some things to pay off debts." "What debts?" "Dad lost a lot of money on bad investments. It seems he put money into the stock market and lost almost everything. Aunt Jennifer said that's why they needed your money." Walter felt a mix of sadness and relief. Sadness because Robert was in financial trouble and hadn't trusted him enough to ask for help. Relief because there was a real explanation for the whole situation. "Jason, did they say anything else?" "Yes. Aunt Jennifer said you could never find out about Dad's debts because otherwise it would prove they did all this for money, not out of concern." "Do you have any way to prove what you're telling me?" Jason hesitated. "Grandpa, I recorded the conversation on my phone." "You recorded it?" "Yes. I was already suspicious of some things. When they kicked you out, I knew something was wrong. You've never been confused or forgetful." Jason showed the phone with the recording. The quality wasn't perfect, but Jennifer and Robert arguing about money and debts was clearly understandable. "Jason, do you realize this could cause a huge fight in the family?" "I know, Grandpa, but I can't just stand by and watch them do this to you. It's not fair." Walter hugged his grandson, deeply moved. Even in the middle of all this chaos, Jason had chosen to stand by the truth. "What are you going to do now?" "I'll give this recording to my lawyer, but are you sure you want to be involved in this?" "I am. You took care of me when my parents split up. Now it's my turn to take care of you." Jason stayed a few more minutes talking with his grandfather, sharing details about life at home. Jennifer had hired an expensive maid, and Robert had bought a new car, all with money that should have been Walter's. "Grandpa, there's one more thing. They're planning to put you in a nursing home." "What do you mean?" "I heard Aunt Jennifer talking on the phone with someone about a spot in a nursing home. She said it was for a man with mental problems." "They can't force me into one." "I don't know how it works, Grandpa, but they're planning something." Walter grew worried. If Jennifer somehow managed to prove he had mental issues, she could really have him committed against his will. "Jason, you should go before they notice you're missing." "Okay, Grandpa, but call me if anything happens." Jason left the building, and Walter spent the rest of the night thinking about his grandson's revelations. Robert was in debt and had used his father's money to save himself. Jennifer was helping because she knew part of that money would be her inheritance someday. On Monday, Walter went to Dr. Thompson with Jason's recording. The lawyer was thrilled when he heard the audio. "Mr. Walter, this changes everything. With this recording, we can prove their motivation was financial, not concern for your health." "What do we do now?" "We'll file a lawsuit to nullify the property transfer and demand repayment of the money taken from your account." "How long will this take?" "With this evidence, it might be quicker than I thought. I'll request a mediation hearing first." Dr. Thompson explained that in mediation, both sides would try to reach an agreement without going to trial. If no agreement was reached, the case would proceed to court. "Doctor, what if they try to put me in a nursing home?" "With Dr. Miller's report and these recordings, that's impossible. I'll request an injunction to block any attempt at commitment." Walter left the office feeling more secure. For the first time in weeks, he saw light at the end of the tunnel, but the peace didn't last. On Tuesday, when he arrived at the building for his shift, Bill was waiting for him with a worried look. "Walter, I've been thinking about your situation. Are you sure you want to get into a legal battle with your kids?" "Why, Bill?" "Some people came here today asking about you. They wanted to know if you were working properly, if you weren't confused or doing strange things." "What people?" "A well-dressed, elegant woman. She said she was your daughter and was worried about your mental health." Walter realized Jennifer was trying to gather witnesses against him. "What did you tell her?" "I told the truth. That you're an exemplary employee, punctual, responsible." She didn't like that answer. "Bill, can I tell you the truth about all this?" Walter explained everything to Bill, who was outraged. "What ungrateful children. After all you've done for them. Do you still trust me to keep working here?" "Of course. And if you need a witness for the case, you can count on me." Meanwhile, Dr. Thompson was working on the case. He discovered Jennifer had consulted 3 different psychiatrists to evaluate Walter's mental capacity, but all refused to issue a report without examining the patient personally. "Mr. Walter, your daughter is desperate to prove you have mental problems. That shows how weak her case is. When will the mediation hearing be?" "I scheduled it for next week. The judge wants to resolve this quickly." "Will they try to settle?" "I doubt it, but we'll be ready for anything." Dr. Thompson was building a careful strategy. Besides Jason's recordings and Dr. Miller's report, he had gathered other important evidence. "Mr. Walter, I found out your daughter has a history of lawsuits for unethical conduct in law. Nothing serious, but it shows a pattern of questionable behavior. Will that help our case?" "Yes, it proves she's used shady methods before to get what she wants." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. On the eve of the hearing, Walter received an unexpected call. It was Margaret from Miami. "Bro, I'm worried about you. I tried calling several times, but it was always busy or went to voicemail." "Margaret, I've been dealing with some problems here." "What kind of problems? You can tell me." Walter then told his sister everything. Margaret was shocked. "Walter, how could they do this? You took care of them your whole life." "I know, Margaret. Now I'm fighting to get back what's mine." "Bro, I'm coming to Chicago right now." "You don't have to, Margaret. You just got better." "Yes, I do. You helped me when I needed it. Now it's my turn. Besides, I can testify that you were perfectly lucid the whole time you took care of me." "Margaret, are you sure?" "Absolutely, I'm already packing." Margaret arrived in Chicago the morning of the hearing. Walter picked her up from the airport with the money he'd saved from working as a janitor. When brother and sister hugged, they both cried. "Bro, you've lost weight. Are you eating properly?" "I am, Margaret. I get food at work." "This is outrageous. A man your age having to work as a janitor because of your own children's greed." Margaret was furious and determined to help her brother. On the way to the courthouse, she shared details of how Walter had cared for her in Miami. "Walter, you were an angel in my life. You took care of me with so much dedication, so much patience. You organized my meds, took me to the doctor, stayed by my side during my worst moments. How can they say you have mental problems?" The mediation hearing was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon. Walter arrived at the courthouse with Dr. Thompson and Margaret. On the other side, Jennifer and Robert were with an expensive lawyer, clearly hired with what had once been Walter's money. "Dad," Robert said when he saw Walter, his voice hesitant. "Robert," Walter replied coldly. Jennifer avoided looking directly at her father and aunt. Jason wasn't present, likely at his parents' insistence. The judge, Judge Richard Wilson, a man around 50, called the parties into the hearing room. "We're here to attempt mediation in the case of Walter Jenkins versus Jennifer Jenkins and Robert Jenkins. I'll first hear from the respondents." Jennifer and Robert's lawyer began speaking about their legitimate concern for their father's mental state, the excessive money transfers to Margaret, and the need to protect the family's assets. "Your Honor, my clients only acted to safeguard their father's estate, which was being irresponsibly depleted." Dr. Thompson asked to speak. "Your Honor, I request permission to present evidence that completely contradicts this version. The attorney presented Jason's recording, Dr. Miller's medical report, and testimonies from several witnesses about Walter's sound mind. When the judge heard the recording where Jennifer and Robert discussed debts and needing their father's money, the atmosphere in the room shifted entirely. Dr. Jennifer, would you like to comment on this recording? Jennifer visibly tensed. Your Honor, this recording was made without our knowledge. It could have been edited. Doctor, Jennifer, are you claiming the recording is fake? Not exactly, but... So you confirm that your motivation for taking control of your father's assets was financial, as demonstrated in the recording. Jennifer exchanged desperate looks with her lawyer, who asked for a recess. During the break, Dr. Thompson turned to Walter. This is going better than we expected. The judge is clearly convinced there was bad faith. When the hearing resumed, Jennifer and Robert's lawyer tried a new strategy. Your Honor, my clients acknowledge they may have acted hastily, but always with the intention of protecting their father. We are willing to negotiate a settlement. What kind of settlement? Asked the judge. Returning the house and 50% of the funds taken from Mr. Walter's account. Dr. Thompson stood immediately. Your Honor, my client refuses any settlement. We demand the full return of all assets and funds, plus compensation for emotional damages. Mr. Walter, would you like to speak? The judge asked. Walter rose, his voice steady despite his emotion. Your Honor, I raised these two children alone from the time they were little. I worked 45 years to give them a decent life. I never denied them anything they asked for, and when I needed to care for my sick sister, they took advantage of my absence to steal everything I built in a lifetime. Walter's voice wavered. I don't want a settlement. I want justice. I want them to face the consequences of their actions. Robert began to cry softly. Jennifer kept her face hardened. Dad, we just wanted to protect our inheritance, Robert said through tears. Robert, I never said I'd leave my money to someone else. I always planned to leave everything to you, but did you want me to suffer before I passed? Was that it? No, Dad. You what? Walter pressed. We thought that you were going to spend everything on Aunt Margaret, Jennifer finally admitted. Jennifer, Margaret is my sister. She needed help. That doesn't mean I'd leave you with nothing. Margaret asked permission to speak. Your Honor, I can testify that my brother Walter cared for me with complete clarity and dedication. Not only was he mentally sound, but he showed admirable organization and responsibility. He managed my medications, attended all my medical appointments, and controlled my expenses. How can anyone claim a man like that has mental problems? The judge reviewed all the documents presented. Based on the evidence, I see no alternative but to order the immediate annulment of the property transfer and a judicial freeze on assets to ensure full restitution. Jennifer made one last attempt. Your Honor, my father is working as a night janitor. Doesn't that show instability? Dr. Jennifer, your father is working because you and your brother left him with nothing. On the contrary, it shows dignity and strength of character. The judge ruled that the house be immediately returned to Walter, along with all funds taken from his accounts, adjusted for inflation. Additionally, Jennifer and Robert would have to pay compensation for emotional damages. There's one more matter to resolve, the judge said. Dr. Thompson, I understand there's a minor involved in this situation. Yes, Your Honor. Jason Jenkins, my client's grandson. Did the minor provide important evidence for the case? Yes, sir. Mr. Robert, do you still have custody of your son? Yes, Your Honor. I'll order that Jason be interviewed by social services to determine whether he wishes to remain in your custody or live with his grandfather. Robert panicked. Your Honor, Jason is my son. Mr. Robert, Jason is 18 and can choose where he wants to live. Moreover, your recent actions suggest you may not be the best role model for a young man. The hearing concluded with the ruling that Walter immediately regain possession of the house. Jennifer and Robert would have 15 days to vacate the property and return all belongings that hadn't been sold. Outside the courthouse, Robert tried to approach his father. Dad, I'm so sorry. It shouldn't have come to this. Robert, you're my son, and you always will be. But you need to understand that your actions had consequences. Can you ever forgive me? Walter looked at the son he had raised with so much love. Robert, forgiving is one thing. Trusting again is something entirely different. Jennifer stepped closer, her loyally arrogance replaced by remorse. Dad, we were wrong. We messed up badly. Jennifer, you didn't just mess up. You planned this. There's a big difference. What's going to happen to us now? That depends on you. You'll have to learn to live with the consequences of the choices you made. Margaret hugged her brother. Walter, you did it. You showed them who you really are. Margaret, I just wish it hadn't come to this. Dr. Thompson was pleased with the outcome. Mr. Jenkins, you'll get everything back, with monetary adjustments and even compensation for emotional damages. And best of all, your dignity has been restored. Doctor, how can I ever thank you for everything you've done for me? Mr. Jenkins, hearing your story reminded me why I chose law, to defend people like you. That same afternoon, Walter returned to his home after nearly a month. The keys had been handed over by court order. When he opened the door, he saw that everything was different, yet it was still his home. Jason was waiting in the living room. Grandpa, the young man said, running to embrace him. Jason, my dear grandson. Grandpa, I want to live with you. I can't stand being in the same house as them after what they did. Are you sure about this, Jason? Absolutely. You taught me values they forgot. I want to stand by someone with integrity. Walter and Jason spent the next few weeks reorganizing the house. Many things had been sold, but the most important remained, the home and the bond of their true family. Margaret decided to stay in Chicago permanently to be near her brother. She rented a house in the same neighborhood and became a constant presence in Walter and Jason's lives. Robert tried to reconnect a few times, but Walter kept a respectful distance. Forgiveness would come with time, but trust would need to be earned back. Jennifer, on the other hand, seemed to have learned little from the experience. She continued blaming her father for the family's problems and rarely reached out. 3 months after the trial, Walter made a decision that surprised everyone. He decided to sell the house. Grandpa, why do you want to sell the house? You fought so hard to get it back, Jason asked. Jason, this house holds both good and bad memories. I want to start a new chapter in my life. And where will we live? I thought we could buy a smaller place for the two of us and use the rest of the money for a special project. What project? Walter smiled. I want to create a support center for seniors who've gone through situations like mine. A place where they can get legal, psychological, and social help. Jason was thrilled by the idea. Grandpa, that's amazing. Can I help? Of course. You'll be my right hand in this. Margaret fully supported her brother's decision. Walter, you've always been generous. Even after everything you've been through, you still think of helping others. The New Beginnings. Senior Support Center opened 6 months later in a spacious house downtown. Walter used his personal experience to help other seniors in similar situations. Dr. Thompson became the center's volunteer legal advisor. Dr. Miller offered free medical care. Mrs. Wilson became a volunteer, helping with social activities. Jason was studying law at university and used the center as his internship site. His family experience had motivated him to specialize in elder law. Grandpa, you've saved so many families with this project, Jason said one day, watching Walter assist an elderly man who had been thrown out by his own children. Jason, I'm not saving families. I'm showing that there's always a second chance to begin again. The center has become a reference in the city. Walter received thank you letters from seniors who had regained their dignity with the project's help. Robert showed up at the center on a rainy afternoon. Dad, can I talk to you? Of course, Robert. Come in. Robert looked around, impressed by what he saw. Dad, I came to apologize, not just for my words, but to show I've learned the lesson. What lesson? That family isn't about sharing the same blood, but the same values. Robert explained he'd sold his new car and other unnecessary belongings to pay off his debts without using the settlement money he owed his father. Dad, I want to work here at the center, as a volunteer. I want to help other seniors and maybe one day earn back your trust. Walter looked at his son. He saw sincerity in his eyes for the first time in years. Robert, You can start Monday, but on one condition. What? You'll work directly with Jason. You need to earn back your own son's trust, too. Robert agreed. In the following months, father and son worked together at the center, slowly rebuilding their broken relationship. Jennifer never reached out to her father. She continued practicing law, but had lost several important clients after the case's fallout. The legal community hadn't viewed her actions favorably. A year after the center's opening, Walter received an award from the city for his service to the community. Jason, now in his third year of law school, gave the thank you speech. My grandfather taught me that true wealth isn't in what we accumulate, but in what we build for others. He lost everything material but gained something far greater, the certainty of doing the right thing. Walter was moved, surrounded by Margaret, Jason, Robert, Dr. Thompson, Dr. Miller, Mrs. Wilson, and dozens of seniors the center had helped. I want to thank everyone who stood by me in my hardest moments, Walter said. I've learned that real family isn't determined by blood, but by choice. And today, I have a larger, closer family than ever. Robert approached his father. Dad, thank you for giving me a second chance. Robert, we all deserve a second chance, but we must earn it through actions, not just words. After the ceremony, Walter, Margaret, and Jason went home together. Their new house was smaller but much cozier. Grandpa, are you happy with the choices you made? Jason asked. Jason, I lost a house but gained a purpose. I lost money but gained dignity. I lost trust in some of my children but gained a grandson's unconditional love and a sister's support. In the end, I came out ahead. Margaret smiled. Walter, you've always been wise, but now you're wise and happy. Margaret, happiness doesn't come from what we have, but from what we do with it. Jason was studying for a constitutional law exam when he got an unexpected call. It was Jennifer. Jason, I need to talk to you. Aunt Jennifer. Yes. Can we meet? Jason told Walter about the call. His grandfather encouraged him to see his aunt. Jason, she's family too. Maybe she's ready to admit her mistakes. Jason met Jennifer at a cafe near the university. She looked different, less arrogant, more humble. Jason, I know I have no right to ask anything after all I've done. What do you want, Aunt Jennifer? I want to apologize to you, to your grandfather, to the whole family. Why now? Jennifer sighed. Because I've lost almost all my clients. Because I'm alone. Because I realized I destroyed the only family I had over money. And what do you want me to do? Plead my case to your grandfather. Note, while I've followed the instructions strictly, I noticed the cultural mapping didn't include translations for Wu, grandpa, or Tia, aunt, so I used the natural English equivalents grandpa and aunt in context. I want a chance to redeem myself. Jason looked at his aunt. He saw genuine remorse in her eyes. Aunt Jennifer, I'll talk to my grandfather, but you'll have to prove you've changed, just like my father is doing. How? By working at the center, helping the seniors who are going through what Grandpa went through. But how can I legally help people who can't pay? Exactly how Dr. Thompson does it, pro bono, for love, not money. Jennifer thought for a moment. I accept. When Jason told Walter about the conversation, his grandfather grew thoughtful. Jason, what do you think? Grandpa, I think we should give her a chance. After all, that's what you did with my dad. You're right. But Jennifer will have to prove her change through actions, not words. Jennifer started working at the center the following week. At first, there was tension between her and the other volunteers, but little by little, she showed genuine dedication. Mr. Jenkins, I understand if you can never forgive me, Jennifer said after a month of work. Jennifer, forgiveness isn't something you earn, it's something you offer. I forgive you, but trust that you'll have to rebuild. How? By continuing to do what you're doing. Helping people, expecting nothing in return. 2 years later, the New Beginning Center had become a national model. Walter received visits from city officials across the country interested in replicating the project. Jason had graduated from law school and decided to specialize in elder law. Robert worked as the center's administrative coordinator. Jennifer had become one of the lead volunteer attorneys, specializing in cases of financial abuse against seniors. "Dad, I want you to know I'm grateful for the lesson you taught me," Robert said during a team meeting. "What lesson?" "That it doesn't matter how many times you fall. What matters is how many times you get back up and try to be better." Margaret had married Dr. Miller and lived in a house near the center. At 68, she had found the love of her life. "Walter, if you hadn't taken care of me, I never would have met David," she said at the wedding. "Margaret, everything in life has a purpose. Sometimes we don't understand it at the time, but later it all makes sense." Jason was dating a college classmate who also volunteered at the center. Mrs. Wilson had become like a second grandmother to him. "Grandpa, I have a question," Jason said one day. "What is it?" "Don't you feel angry about what happened?" Walter carefully considered his answer. "Jason, at first I was very angry. Angry, sad, disappointed. But then I realized holding on to anger is like carrying poison in your soul. It only hurts the one who carries it." "And how did you manage to forgive?" "By forgiving myself first, for being naive, for trusting blindly, for not seeing the signs. Once I forgave myself, forgiving others came easily." The center was preparing a major national campaign to raise awareness about financial abuse against seniors. Jason had written an educational booklet, Robert handled logistics, and Jennifer managed the legal aspects. "Dad, I want you to know this project saved our family," Robert said. "How so?" "It forced us to work together, to have a common purpose bigger than our personal problems." It was true. Working at the center, the three had learned to relate to each other as family again. Jennifer had completely changed. She no longer wore expensive clothes, drove a modest car, and lived in a small apartment. All her extra money went to the center. "Dad, I wanted to ask you something," she said during a family lunch. "What?" "I'd like you to walk me down the aisle." "Marriage? To whom?" "Dr. Thompson." Walter was surprised. Over their 2 years working together at the center, Jennifer and Dr. Thompson had fallen in love. "Michael is a good man, Jennifer. You have my blessing." Jennifer and Dr. Thompson's wedding took place in the hall of the center, with all the volunteers and assisted seniors present. Walter walked his daughter down the aisle, overcome with emotion. "Dad, thank you for teaching me it's never too late to begin again," Jennifer whispered before saying, "I do." Jason was finishing his graduate studies in elder law when he received an offer to open a branch of the center in Miami. Margaret was thrilled at the possibility. "Jason, it would be an honor to have you working in my city," she said. "Aunt Margaret, I'll accept, but on one condition. I want you to be the social coordinator of the center there." "Me? But I don't have the qualifications." "You have something better than qualifications, life experience and a generous heart." Walter watched with pride as his family came together to work for a greater cause. "Jason, are you sure you want to move to Miami? You'll be far from us." "Grandpa, you taught me that true family knows no distance. Besides, I'll be looking after Aunt Margaret, just like you looked after her." Dr. Miller had retired and now dedicated all his time to the center. Mrs. Wilson, at 70, remained active and beloved by all the assisted seniors. "Walter, do you realize you've created a legacy that will last for generations?" said Dr. Miller. "David, I didn't create anything. I just turned pain into purpose." The center had already helped over 1,000 seniors reclaim their rights and dignity. Many cases similar to Walter's had been successfully resolved. "Mr. Jenkins, you saved my life," said Mrs. Hope, an 80-year-old woman who had recovered her home after a similar legal battle. "Mrs. Hope, we save each other. That's the secret of life. There's always someone in need of help, and always someone willing to help." Robert had remarried and had another child. He wanted Walter to be the baby's godfather. "Dad, I want to name my son after you." "Robert, I'm honored. But how about Jason, Walter? Your first son deserves this tribute too." "Perfect. Jason Walter Jenkins." The family gathered for the child's baptism, Jennifer and Dr. Thompson, Margaret and Dr. Miller, Jason and his girlfriend, Robert and his new wife, Mrs. Wilson, and dozens of friends from the center. "Grandpa, Look how our family has grown, said Jason, taking in the crowd. Jason, this is proof that when we do good, good comes back multiplied. Walter was now 75, healthy and happy. The center ran smoothly and already had expansion plans for other cities. Dad, are you planning to retire again? Jennifer teased. Jennifer, those with purpose never retire, they just change roles. During the baptism celebration, Walter stood on a chair to give a speech. I want to thank all of you for being here today. 3 years ago, I thought I'd lost everything. Today, I see I only lost what didn't matter and found everything truly worth having. Real family, life's purpose, and the certainty that it's never too late to begin again. Everyone applauded, moved. Jason approached his grandfather. Grandpa, want to know something? What? I'm grateful for everything that happened. How so? If our parents hadn't done what they did, we'd never have discovered how strong you are. We'd never have learned the lessons we did. We'd never have created the center. Walter hugged his grandson. Jason, you're right. Sometimes God lets us weather storms to show us what we're capable of. And to show us who truly loves us, Jason added. The celebration lasted late into the night. When everyone had left, Walter stood alone in the backyard, gazing at the stars. Margaret joined him. Brother, what's on your mind? I was thinking our mother would be proud to see the family we've built. Walter, you're the strongest man I know. Margaret, strength isn't about never falling. Strength is always getting back up. Jason came to say goodbye before traveling to Miami. Grandpa, I'm going to miss you. Jason, take with you everything I've learned in life. Always treat people with dignity. Never give up on your dreams. And remember that true family is the one we choose to have by our side. Grandpa, I promise I'll make you proud of me. Jason, I'm already proud of you. Now go do good for others. 2 years later, Jason had successfully opened the center in Miami. Robert took over as general coordinator of the center in Chicago. Jennifer had created a legal department specializing in cases involving seniors. Walter, now 77, remained active but more as a consultant and inspiration than a direct manager. Dad, what are you going to do now that you're officially retired from the center? Robert asked. I'm going to write a book. About what? About new beginnings, to show that no matter your age, we can always start again. The book, It's Never Too Late to Begin Again, was released a year later and became a bestseller. Walter donated all royalties to expand the centers across the country. Grandpa, you've become a celebrity, Jason joked during a call from Miami. Jason, celebrities are the ones who get noticed. I'd rather be remembered by those I've helped. The final chapter of the book read, I've learned that losing everything is sometimes necessary to discover who we truly are. I've learned that true family isn't defined by blood, but by love and loyalty. I've learned that it's never too late to begin again, never too late to forgive, never too late to be happy. If you're going through a storm, remember, after the rain always comes the rainbow, and sometimes the rainbow is more beautiful than we ever imagined. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story and where you're watching from. Do you believe Walter made the right decisions? How would you react if you were in his situation? Share your honest thoughts in the comments. We love reading your experiences and opinions. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories like this one.